Welcome to this wellness webinar at the LifeCo Holistic Wellbeing Center here in Bodrum, Turkey. As part of their wellness series, excuse me, I'm recovering from bronchitis here, in honor of their 20-year anniversary already. So I'm your host, Michelle Schoenfeld, Wellbeing Alchemist, and I am so excited for today's episode because it's something that I think all of us can relate to. If we can't yet, we will. There's somebody in our life who we love, or ourselves, women's health and our hormone changes. I love the title of today's talk. Who runs the world? You or your hormones? And that's so perfect. So to do that, we brought in friend of the LifeCo and expert on women's health, Susan Curtis, who is a homeopath and naturopath practitioner, to help us understand more the role that hormones play in our life as we age, how to do it gracefully, and how to thrive wonderfully. So welcome to today, Susan. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much. Good to be here.
So before we get started into the hormone, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into this? What led you down this path?
Okay, so I've been a homeopath and a naturopath since the 1980s, a long time. And women have always been a big part of my practice. I practice mostly online these days, but also have practiced in clinics. And back in the 1980s and early 90s, when I started practicing, hormonal challenges were just a small part of my practice, I would say. But I stopped for 10 years, went back into practice. And then hormonal problems in the last 10, 15 years that I've been practicing have been just such a massive concern for so many women, seems to be much more severe and more prevalent than ever before, that I sort of became very active in that area, really out of need of having to educate myself and help clients through difficult times. Yeah.
Well, it is such an important topic. I mean, what, 51% of the population are women?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Or what I understand, there's hardly any funding in this, and it's so confusing. Hormone replacement therapy, is estrogen good or is estrogen bad? What's the role of testosterone? What can we do with our diet? Can we eat soy? There's so much information, misinformation out there. So I'm really thrilled that you're going to help us navigate that today.
Yeah, I think the other thing to say, as per the title of the webinar, is that hormones affect how we feel and our health, but of course they affect so much our emotions as well. How we respond to things, how good-tempered or bad-tempered or even-tempered we are. Hormones affect us both physically and mentally just so much.
It's so true. And there's so many things that I feel like people just don't talk about. Probably similar in age, Gen X-ish. And it's like, it was not a death sentence, but it was like you're put out to pasture. Menopause was something you didn't talk about. Like once you went through menopause, you're over the hill. And it was like kind of dread. Meanwhile, it can be amazing, actually. And it is the last third to half of our life because we're living longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
People just weren't talking about it. Like, I didn't know until I started researching it and went through it myself at a very young age. It can increase depression, anxiety. Like, we all know about hot flashes or maybe losing bone density, but maybe sexual dysfunction. But there's so many things that people weren't talking about. Maybe you never had ADHD and now you do. Maybe you didn't have anger issues and now you do. There's so many different things and I think people are talking about it more, which is good. But doctors aren't taught in med school about menopause. They're just not. They might have one class on hormones in general that span everything from, getting your period at 12 years old to, a guy getting his first erection. I heard something interesting saying that women going through menopause is like if you told a man that at 51 years old, his testicles were going to dry up and he was going to die. All of a sudden there'd be like mass funding, right? How do we fix that? Yeah. So I'm super excited to dive in today and really kind of go through some of the things that you can do to naturally help yourself navigate through this time that is so normal and natural. And we're all going to go through it. So,
Mm. Yeah, and there is so much you can do. The response to the natural treatments and detox things that we're going to focus on today can just make so much difference to one's health and well-being that it's absolutely transformative. Yeah.
so why don't you lead us off and start with, people aren't really sure. Are they in perimenopause? Are they starting to go through changes? Because it can be 5 or 10 years, right?
Mm.
These changes can
Mm.
start before you actually go into menopause. Can you kind of explain to us what that looks like a little bit?
Well, yeah, I mean, the sort of the change in the hormones does start many years before the actual menopause, the definition of which is, that you stop having periods. But those hormonal changes that lead up to that can, as you say, be for at least 5 years beforehand. I mean, I remember reading somewhere and it made me smile a little bit. If you think you're perimenopausal, if you even think you are, then you are. The very fact it's occurred to you
Yeah.
probably means that there are sufficient changes going on, that there is that hormone change occurring. And again, it can go on for quite a long period of time, but it doesn't have to. That's the thing. It's very, very variable. That's probably the other reason doctors kind of don't really like it in a way, because it's so individual, it's so variable. It's difficult to sort of make rules around it. Yeah.
It's so true, unless you're doing blood work to really check the hormone levels.
Mm.
How do you
Mm.
know, am I depressed, or is this like shoulder pain caused by my hormone changes because of perimenopause, or did I actually hurt myself? It's hard to know.
Well, there is that. And also it's not only the changes, it's our response to those changes. Because some of us will deal with those fluctuations better than others. So it's, as individuals, we're such complex individuals, aren't we? And as you know, if we're sort of feeling good about life and purposeful, and then symptoms don't bother us so much. But if we're going through a stressful time or feeling a bit down for other reasons, then something like hot flushes can completely get us down. So our response is also key, which is why stress management, I think, is probably so important one of the reasons it's so important to manage navigating our way through the menopause. Yeah.
It is good that we're starting to talk about it more, though, openly,
Hmm.
without any kind of shame. I mean, it's our body, it's what we do. Like, we're amazing as women. We have amazing bodies. We bring life into this world.
Mm.
So it's like being comfortable with owning it, loving our bodies anyway, loving the changes, but
Mm.
also being our own advocate, right? Knowing
Absolutely.
what we can do.
Mm.
So let's go into that a little bit. What kind of things can you do to start? Do you want to start with diet? Where would you like to start, Susan?
Um, I think we can start with maybe diet, and also what the changes are. I think can be quite a good place to start as to why um, there seem to be more problems with menopausal symptoms and hormonal conditions in general, because it's all interconnected, and diet is definitely one part of that, I think. I mean, we know, for example, that there are certain things which will aggravate the symptoms of the menopause, like excess red meat, like alcohol, like um, anything really which causes congestion in the individual as well. I mean, that's why I think the approach of somewhere like TheLifeCo is so important, is because it's so brilliant at detox and clearing things out of the system. And any bad habits that we've had in our diet over the past, years leading up to the menopause will definitely impact on the menopause. So, we all from time to time probably go through phases when we're, not eating, we're cutting corners, we're not eating such a kind of clean diet. And one of the key things that happens then is that our liver gets stressed. Our liver has to break down all the side effects of alcohol, of junk food, of chemicals in our food. It has to break those down into components so they can be eliminated out of the body. And if the liver's struggling, then hormones build kind of back up, sort of problematic hormones back up rather than being broken down and flushed out. So we're sort of accumulating more toxicity, if you like, than we're able to flush out of the system. And I think what happens in the menopause is those additional fluctuations of hormones also sort of impact on the liver. So that whole combination then causes liver stress. And the symptoms of liver stress, well, you only have to think of having a hangover. Any of us that have been naughty enough to experience a hangover, we feel irritable, we might have a headache, we might have nausea, we feel hot and irritable. Those are the classic symptoms of a hangover. And those are the classic symptoms of, premenstrual tension. And there's a big connection, I think, between the symptoms of premenstrual tension and some of the symptoms of going through the menopause, when we feel, maybe congested and fraught, maybe get more headaches than normal, maybe getting hot flushes. Yeah. And if we can support the liver during this time and have a kind of healthy liver that's able to function, do its job really efficiently, by eating, kind of good foods, drinking plenty of water, not overloading the system, then we're much less likely to have menopausal symptoms.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Mm. And, then there are things like sugar. So sugar is known now to add to the estrogenic load in the body in a negative way. So it's not only that sugar, we're going to put on weight, we're going to, have highs and lows of energy. We're also actually, it is going to help to disrupt the hormones. So simple sugars, especially white sugar, definitely something to look out for. Yeah.
Which is then also the alcohol, right? Because that's broken down to sugar. I know from myself,
Absolutely. So you get the double whammy. Yeah.
I went through menopause about 42 because I went through chemotherapy. So it was a medical induced.
Mm,
So all these came all at once and really intense. But I'll tell you, I'm 10 years out. I'm healthy. I feel good. I'm strong. Our liver regenerates every 7 years. So my liver's good. I
mm,
can't tolerate alcohol the way I used to at all.
right. Mm,
It just my body just doesn't. I'll get major anxiety. I'll get depression. I get hungover very easily. It's
mm.
amazing how our bodies do change when we don't have those hormones supporting it.
Mm. That's true. And that is the other thing about having a monthly period, for all it's quite nice not to have to deal with periods all the time when you're postmenopausal. I think it's one of the advantages.
Uh,
But nevertheless, having a period once a month is a kind of detox, is an opportunity for the body to sort of clear things out of the system. So I think a lot of women are a bit more sensitive to things like alcohol postmenopausally. Yeah. Mm.
so we were talking about the symptoms as well, right? You said
Mm.
some of the symptoms like the depression, brain fog. I think one of the biggest ones for people is not being able to sleep well.
Mm.
And I think I hear more people complain about that than anything else. And when you don't sleep well, then everything else seems worse as well, right? So
Yeah, that's so true. That's so
how,
true.
what do you tell people when they talk to you about that? Like just to help manage, I mean, I know there's things like melatonin, there's like different supplements you can take, getting a
Mm.
good weight bearing exercise so your body
Mm.
wants rest. What kind
Mm.
of things do you recommend?
Well, it really is the same things with the menopause as it is with any stress-induced sleep deficiency. The first thing that I always look at is detox. It is clearing out and supporting the system, because not only is it sort of hormones that like excess estrogen that need to be cleared out, or those spikes of estrogen, but it is also things like cortisol that need to be cleared out. And that kind of excess cortisol in the system is very much something that is going to disrupt sleep patterns. So that's the what the adrenal glands produce as our fight and flight response, as our stress response to things. And modern life is often really, unfortunately, conducive to us being in a very slightly stressed fight and flight situation the whole time, and social media doesn't help. That whole dopamine, serotonin spike that's, caused by constant, doom scrolling and all the rest of it. So it's all the same things really in terms of sleep management, which is reducing stress, especially in the afternoon as we unwind towards the evening. It's drinking herbal teas. It's not having a big evening meal. All those things. There are some essential oils which can be wonderfully helpful in helping us to get off to sleep. Things like lavender oil, simple things sometimes, like just a couple of drops of lavender essential oil on a tissue on the pillow, has been clinically proven to be as effective as sleeping tablets.
I've heard that, and also some breathing techniques. There's some really great,
Yes.
the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
Yeah.
Breathing
Yeah.
in for 4, holding it for 7, and then releasing for 8. I've actually tried that, and it's put me to sleep before I even get to a count of 4.
Yes, yes. Any of the sort of, breathing techniques and meditation, it's, that's another thing that, that is proven that doing regular meditation, it's finding the kind of meditation that works for you and that you will, do routinely and enjoy. That's often the key, isn't it?
There's so
Rather than
many
just
great apps.
one.
There's so many great apps out there as well now that
There
can.
are, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something else that can be very helpful. And then, of course, there is regular exercise. Again, regular, moderate, not really excessive, but, a good brisk walk or find a sport you enjoy. I play a lot of tennis because I love it 2 or 3 times a week. So again, it's finding what you enjoy, doing it regularly, and yeah, that can also be very helpful for sleep. And then there are some herbs as well. Chamomile tea, just about everybody. I know there's some people here from the Caribbean, which is lovely, and they will, chamomile is one of the herbs that's available all over the world, really. You can normally get hold of it. And drinking chamomile tea in the evening is very relaxing and also helps you to digest more effectively. It's a tonic as well for the digestion.
I'm in Turkey, as I mentioned. I'm in Bodrum right now.
Mm.
Chamomile is blooming.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
So anybody, I
How
see a few names
lovely.
here that I recognize from Turkey. You can just go out and pick it. They look like little white daisies, kind of.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, nice.
beautiful.
I've been doing fresh at night myself. So I want to come back to, you mentioned detox.
Yes.
What would you recommend? How long should you detox? And explain a little bit about that. What detox
Well,
means to you when you're referencing it?
yes, there are many different ways of doing a detox, aren't there? There are sort of slow, gradual detoxes, I think, where you just totally clean up your diet, um, and avoid all the things you need to avoid, like, red meat, alcohol, dairy products, wheat, and sugar. Those are the things that you have to absolutely cut out completely. Um, and then beyond that, there are ways of speeding up the process of detox. So, you can do intermittent fasting is one of the very popular ones these days because it's simple and effective. Which can be, eating not, having a 15-hour break, usually overnight between meals. So you have breakfast late, you have an early dinner and a late breakfast, basically.
And
Um,
a tip I have on that is,
mm,
for some people it seems daunting. If you're a 3 meal a day kind of person, and
mm,
especially like a lot of people here are probably in their 40s and 50s that we're talking about. So you might have teenagers, you might have little kids, you might have a full-time job, you might have a partner.
mm,
And so you want your eating schedule to be isn't necessarily what the people in your life's eating schedule is.
mm, mm,
It can seem daunting to, like, I can't have breakfast or I have to eat dinner earlier than I want to.
mm,
Set yourself up for success. Set yourself up for success. It doesn't have to be overnight. You can say every day, I'm going to change it by a half hour.
mm,
If you're normally a breakfast person and you eat at 7 in the morning, do 7:30 for a couple days, then do 8. And before you know it, within a couple of weeks, you're going to be having your 16-hour or 15-hour fast. Like, just set yourself up for success and don't beat yourself up. Don't think it's going to be so difficult. It's really not as hard as you think. But if you're a regular 3 meal a day person, it can seem daunting, I think. And it really is amazing too when you detox. We've done the LifeCo detoxes, both of us, several times, which I love. You're doing 7, 10 days, only juice, only water, whatever your program is. And it's amazing not having food, how much energy you can have. Because
It is
your body
incredible.
can do cell repair. Your body can switch into cell repair. And all of a sudden you have more energy and your brain's clear and you see better. You wouldn't think that, but it's amazing. I used to think if I don't have breakfast, I'm going to be foggy or I'm going to be tired. That's not actually the case. Often I play tennis from 10 to 12. I don't have my first meal until 12:30. I have so much energy on the court. No
Wow,
problem.
that's impressive.
But I had to change my mindset that I could do it. Let's just see. Let's just try. And it really was from my experience at the LifeCo, going on those morning walks with no food, going, oh, I can't do this. And then it's like, oh, actually, I can. And I feel so much better afterwards because you get that endorphins and the serotonin from the exercise, right?
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think the absolute ideal, of course, is to go somewhere like the LifeCo where you can. It's like this great induction into the whole process, isn't it? And you're so well supported, and the juices are delicious and are made for you, and the days go by so quickly because you're kept, busy with all the wonderful things and the wonderful juices. But it isn't possible for everybody to do that. So it is possible to do it at home. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm.
It is. And also the LifeCo, they have really good resources on their website.
Mm.
They have the podcast, they have another platform, Wellness Together. Just so there's a lot of resources there too that they share. How to do a juice cleanse, how often to do the juice, what supplements to take with it. There's so much information out there. So if you can't get yourself into one of their locations, whether it's here in Bodrum or Phuket, or
Mm.
Bali or something, you can do it from home. It is
Mm.
possible for sure.
Mm. Mm. And also, it is worth bearing in mind that it's what you do with sort of 80-90% of your diet. If you eat just really cleanly for 80-90% of the time, even without fasting, if the whole of your diet, over the months and years, that has an incredible transformative effect on you meet people that eat really, really well for several years and they can look amazing in older age. Can't it's just pays off. It is so incredible, I think. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me that made a difference was cutting out dairy. It's such
Mm,
an inflammatory, all dairy just causes inflammation. But cutting that out, it was amazing how much more energy I had, how much my skin looked better.
mm.
Yeah, that really helped a
Yeah,
lot.
it's a big one, isn't it?
It really is.
One thing that often strikes me specifically about the menopause as well is I used to travel quite a lot and go to China and Japan quite regularly to teach. And I was running workshops in the UK at the time. And, if I was running workshops on aromatherapy or nutrition, we'd always, just cover the menopause, maybe not in a long way. But when I was in Japan in particular, if I started to talk about the menopause, the women were like, well, we don't have a problem. It's not a big deal. There's no need for a workshop on the menopause. It's like, it's so fascinating. I think it's beginning to change now. But it literally, they sort of didn't know what we were talking about,
And
which
do you
is
think that really was the case, or do you think it was a social stigma that they just didn't talk about it?
no, because this was groups just of women and they were very open. I mean, I know they're not, traditionally a very open, typically culture, but this was absolutely hot flushes, no, especially hot flushes. Um, and because of course they eat, tofu and miso and
Exactly.
and they don't eat much wheat and they don't eat much junk food, and Japanese women don't drink very much alcohol. Some of the men do, but not some of the women traditionally. So all the things that, we're recommending and sorting out in our own lives for them are just sort of daily life.
That made me think of something about misinformation. As we were told for a while, stay away from soy, stay away from tofu. even though it's super high protein and it has benefits because of the phytoestrogen. But there's a lot more than just one estrogen receptor.
Mm.
There's a lot more. That's just part of it. Would you mind maybe demystifying that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I'm very happy to do that because it can be very confusing, can't it? So, yeah, bearing these sort of Japanese and certain areas of China, the women involved, we can see that actually clearly having a good amount of soya in the diet isn't necessarily a problem. And that's because the form of estrogens and so on in soya and certain essential oils and certain other herbs and foods like fennel and that kind of thing is very, very easily broken down and eliminated by the body. It's in a natural package in a food stuff, and we eat it, we break it down very easy and clear it out of the system. So unless you have, I mean, of course, if you have a hormone dependent cancer or, there's a very specific reason why you're told to avoid anything that might be estrogenic. It's very different because the natural sources of hormones there are broken down very naturally, and it really isn't a problem. Where it is a problem is what are called hormone disruptors, or sometimes also called xenoestrogens or foreign estrogens, which are the things like in plastics. We know that plastic, in particular, is a hormone disruptor. They should really be called hormone disruptors, probably, rather than xenoestrogens or something, because they have a very disruptive effect. And because they're persistent chemicals, the body can't break them down and eliminate them in the same way that it can with something like soya. So they're stored in the fat and they're stored in the liver. And those I'm absolutely sure, and there is a lot of research done now, are really one of the problematic areas, both for menopausal symptoms, but also for, a lot of cancers and so on. We know that plastic migrates. Plastic's a really big bugbear of mine because single-use plastic should be banned. There's no doubt about it because it builds up in the system, it builds up in the fat, and it causes all sorts of health problems. And the same with synthetic pesticides and fertilizers. Again, we know they're hormone disruptors. They affect, the sex division of aquatic animals. They disrupt the health of men and women in different ways. And, those are things that we have to sort out in our environment. And another reason why we have to detox, to get them out of our system.
I was just going to ask you that next. What can you do to help clear those? I know they're forever chemicals. What can you do to kind of help get them out of your system?
They are forever chemicals, and they do, sadly, they do build up. But what you have to do is burn those fat cells. And that's one of the reasons, again, why, obesity is an issue for health problems. The rates of cancer, heart disease, just about every illness you look at, it is a factor. It is a factor. And that's partly because those pollutants are being stored. We're carrying around more toxicity. And a lot of the reason why women suffer with breast cancer increasingly is because breast tissue is storing those things. So what we need to do is detox, which the cells that are the most vulnerable, the cells that are the most damaged, as we know, when you detox, are those very cells which are eliminated first. The body burns up and gets rid of the damaged cells before it keeps hold of the healthy cells. So that detox process, again, is just so important for staying well.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And we said fat, and that brings me to something else that we hear. You're going to go through menopause and you're going to get fat. You're going to go through menopause and you're going to gain weight you can't help. Well, yes and no, right? Like your body does start metabolizing things differently. You can gain weight if you're not careful because your metabolism has changed. I remember somebody calling the belly fat that you get in menopause the menopot, right? The menopot. I thought that was actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
But all of our ages, basically, probably on here, were probably brought up or bombarded with the Kate Mosses, right? The models and the actresses, the Twiggies, Goldie Hawn, skinnier the better, skinnier the better. So we're working out and we're doing cardio because we need to be thin, because we associate thin with healthy. But the truth is, as we go into menopause, that's not the case. Strong is healthy.
Yeah.
We need to do weight-bearing exercises. We need to have muscle. We need to be strong to support our bones, to support our body. Don't think about skinny as healthy, because skinny is not synonymous with healthy. Strong is. And really like embracing your body for being strong. Yeah.
That's really beautifully put, Michelle. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It isn't skinny, it is strong and weight-bearing exercise. And it isn't excessive either, is it? I mean, I know that it's said that you need to go for a brisk walk for 20 to 30 minutes 5 times a day is sufficient weight-bearing exercise to prevent and even turn around osteoporosis. So that combined with a good diet, yeah, it doesn't have to be super excessive. I mean, it's great if you also do some extra, high intensity training or some weights and so on, but it doesn't have to be that programmed. It can just be, good brisk walking that makes the difference. So important. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get ankle weights. They're easy, they're not expensive. As long as you don't have knee problems, you can do those. You can do push-ups from your knees. Just do push-ups. Dips on the end of your bed. There's little things, use your own body weight. It's amazing what you can do with your own body weight. Stepping up and down on stairs. There's so many things you can do without even having to go to the gym or buy expensive equipment, just by using your own body weight.
Yeah.
Do it. Take 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day and do some like squatting jumps and do some push-ups. It's amazing the difference that'll make in keeping your muscles going. Even if you never had to do it before, it makes
It is building it in, isn't it? It's building in those routines that I think are the absolute key. And, taking that time for yourself. And, lots of women in particular say, I don't have that time, I can't spend that. But it's an investment that's going to pay off both for you and for your whole family, because you're going to stay healthy and fitter and able to care for people for longer and be, also better company.
So as we're going into our body, into the physical part, I know that vitamin D is so important.
Yeah.
Like really upping your vitamin D, vitamin D3, which I think you have to take with K2 to absorb, right?
Yeah.
And we are inside so much more now. We're wearing sunscreen. Maybe we shouldn't be. I guess that's not healthy now, we're finding out too. But in general, we're not getting enough vitamin D, especially as we age. Would you mind touching on that a little bit?
Well, I think that's absolutely right, that anybody who lives, north of the Mediterranean, away from the equator, really, really needs to take vitamin D supplements during the winter. In the summer, if you have 20, 30 minutes sun exposure between May and September, then they say that's sufficient, to make enough good vitamin D. But that has to be, again, without sun protection factors, of course, do protect your skin, but it's only without that you're going to absorb enough sunlight, and only in the summer months, unless you live, in the tropics. And then don't take it for granted. You do actually need to be outside and in the sun with your arms and legs bare to make that vitamin D naturally. Otherwise, definitely take a supplement, because vitamin D is just so connected with so many, both mental and physical symptoms. Again, it is very related to depression, lack of vitamin D. It's very related to, having a healthy immune system, very related to, reduction of, totally to reduction of bowel cancer and breast cancer in particular.
A few years ago, for everybody in my family, not just the women, I bought the light bulbs that have the same light as sun. A lot of my family is in the north, in the United States. They're like in Boston or Wisconsin, north areas. We just don't get enough natural sunlight. It helps with your mood, right?
Yeah.
Your mood, if you can't get outside. Are there any other supplement, I don't know, creatine or calcium, or is there anything else that you would say is also important to pay attention to as you're going through menopause?
As you're going through menopause, B vitamins. It's a very good time to consider taking, unless you have a perfect diet. I would say take a good B complex.
Mhm.
It's so good for helping sleep, as we talked about earlier. It's so good for helping reduce symptoms of stress. It reduces the impact of stress on the body, basically. Because it's one thing going through stress, isn't it? Everybody's going to experience it at some time or another. But it's preventing that impact on your body so
Yeah,
that you bounce back super healthy, without it undermining your health. And B vitamins are definitely one area, and they totally protect your cognition as well, your mind and thinking and memory. So I'd say, and I know Patrick Holfood, who's a nutritionist who I really respect, says it's a kind of crime that the government doesn't prescribe B complex to anybody over 50 because it would prevent dementia. It has a very protective effect in preventing dementia. He says rather than give statins to everybody over 50, especially women, because they're proven to not work effectively on women's statins, give a high level of B complex and you'd get much more, it'd be much more cost effective.
that's really interesting. I really hope that we're starting to have more things covered. And just by having these dialogues, I think it was Halle Berry, the documentary on menopause, Dr. Marie Claire, there's a lot of media now about menopause, that some of
Mm.
these things are going to be normal. Like I know in the United States, we have something called Medicare, which is when you're older, it pays for your medical treatments.
Yeah,
I
sure.
found out they won't cover a doctor's appointment if it has to do with menopause. They don't see that as medically necessary.
Oh, that's outrageous, isn't it? Yeah.
For having issues, you're supposed to say all these other things you're having and don't use the word menopause. You have to say other things like
Yes,
your
yes.
headaches or I'm having anxiety or whatever. You can't say anything about menopause, or there's not even a code for it where the insurance will cover it. It's insane.
Right, right. It is
They'll
insane.
cover erectile dysfunction, won't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, that is going to lead me into something else that I think a lot of people think about and maybe don't talk about is the effect on our sexual wellness,
Mm,
our desire, our arousal, our libido, dry
mm,
vaginas, things that
hmm.
happen during menopause. Would you mind kind of touching on that as well? Things that you could maybe do, or I would just love
Yeah.
to some.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because there is just so many things that can be so helpful. Um, Uh, okay, so in terms of dryness, probably the most effective thing is to take an omega-7 supplement. We all have heard of omega-369. Well, omega-7 is very, very specifically proven to help with keeping mucous membranes well oiled. And so sea buckthorn oil, something called sea buckthorn oil, is the richest natural source of omega-7 by a long way. And you can get the capsules quite easily, use a reputable company, make sure, obviously there is a good amount of sea buckthorn oil in the capsules, but
It's
many clinical trials. Yeah, SEA.
SEA.
SEA as in the sea, la mer, and then buckthorn is a plant that grows actually quite a long way up north, Scandinavia and so on. It's wild, you see it everywhere, but quite a long way up in the northern hemisphere. And it's literally just a cold pressed oil. And it has
And
this amazing effect of helping to keep the vagina moist. So anybody with dryness, I would really recommend that. It's
do you take it
works.
orally or do you put it
Yeah,
vaginally?
capsules. Yeah, take it orally. It is one of those essential fatty acids that we need from our diet because we're not able to produce them. Um, so that's one really good tip. Another good tip is pine bark extract. It's sometimes called pycnogenol which is Pycnogenol, pycnogenol. But you can buy it as pine bark extract. Pycnogenol is just a brand. Pine bark extract. Again, you can get it in capsules, and it is literally the extract of the bark of pine trees, normally grown in France. And it has the effect of increasing the microcirculation. So originally it was prescribed and used by herbalists for heart, pulse circulation to the extremities, or to the heart muscle. But it's also, now research has shown, it also helps the microcirculation to the vagina. So as that becomes less sensitive post-menopause, it helps to increase the sensitivity. So your libido improves, your sexual enjoyment improves. So yeah, it's very simple, totally natural. That's all it is, pine bark extract. So there are so many sort of quite simple remedies in a way that you can use. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, so you're a naturopath and a homeopathic practitioner. So we're doing it the natural way. But I want
Mm-hmm.
to ask, because I'm sure people are thinking about this, what are your thoughts on the estrogen creams?
Mm. Well, I think this sort of, bioidentical HRT or estrogen creams, as they're called these days, estrogen replacement creams, they're a lot better than the old-fashioned
Yeah.
forms of HRT that were around in the sort of 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Things have moved on, and the side effects are a lot less. It's still, for me, it would be a last resort. I'd try other things first, through diet and really, because when we produce hormones ourselves, we're producing them in parts per million. It's tiny amounts, actually. It's really quite incredible. As we were saying earlier, the human body and the woman's body is so amazing that these tiny amounts of hormones, and our hormone receptors are all keyed up to sort of respond to them. And whenever we're using an estrogen cream or any form of HRT, or anything like that, it kind of is swamping the system. So it's there, it is can be quite overwhelming for the body. So there are sort of simpler, gentler, more
Yeah.
natural in a way ways of doing things, I think. But obviously, if someone's really miserable, then you look for.
Well, I mean, some women do complain that it can be really painful intercourse.
Mm,
And obviously, if it's really painful and you have a healthy partner, somebody that you
mm.
should be with, a good, and you've had a wonderful maybe sex life before, and all of a sudden it changes and then it hurts, of course you're not going to want to do it. And then of course you're going to be not, it's not going to feel good, like up here either.
Yeah, it can put a lot of strain on a relationship,
Yeah.
can't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
So
mm.
it's nice to know that there's a lot of different options out there.
Yes,
And I guess
yes.
I would say to anybody out there, if you're not sure, the first thing to do, I guess, right, would be go to your doctor and get a blood test, right? So you know what your hormones actually are, what your vitamins, because maybe you're not deficient in magnesium, maybe you're not deficient in B, maybe you are total deficit in vitamin D. Like the only way to know is
Mm.
to get blood work. And then you can take that blood work, knowledge is power, and then search
Always.
out
Mm.
a naturopathic or homeopathic practitioner in your area if you want to go the natural route.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's good advice. Yeah, it's always good to know, isn't it? The more information that you have, the better. I certainly believe in that. Yeah. Mm.
I can say one thing that made a big difference for me is I've always had a pretty healthy body that functioned well weight-wise and energy-wise. And then I go through menopause and it was okay, but it did start to change, not drastically, but I realized I have to be much more focused. If I eat a lot of fiber, I'm good. If I'm eating like fiber, think of crunchy vegetables,
Mm.
yeah, seeds, nuts, I'm good,
Yeah,
right? I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah.
And staying away from the simple carbs, which is also the sugar. Like I don't
Mm.
eat gluten, I don't eat rice, I try to stay away from that.
Mm.
But every once in a while I get lazy and I realize, maybe I had a couple days of, I don't know, I can't even think right now, but I wasn't feeling well. So I ate lentil soup for 2 meals, 3 days in a row, basically. Well, no wonder I have no energy. Like I'm not getting anything else. Yeah, I'm getting protein, but so it's
Mm.
really important to keep your diet balanced, right? Get
Mm-hmm.
lots of fiber. It's so much more important when we go through menopause, but
Yeah.
also getting your protein. Our muscles need protein. Our body
Mm.
needs protein.
Mm, mm. No, fiber and roughage is so important for so many reasons actually. Partly it keeps our gut healthy. You know, they've act as prebiotics, a lot of fiber foods, so it helps us to have a healthy gut. So then we're producing what, you know, when you think 90% of your serotonin's produced in your gut, and that's the happy hormone, you need to have a healthy gut to be producing, you know, serotonin to be feeling good. And also our immune system, a lot of it is based in the gut. So there's that side of it. There's also, you know, the side of it that one of the most important things you can do for yourself is to never be constipated, because you are getting that toxic buildup and, you know, unable to get the hormones broken down out of your system and, you know, the byproducts of them. So again, talking about detox, it's the kind of fundamental building block, really, isn't it? Is to be able to keep the system clear, you know. Yeah.
I thankfully don't have that problem, but I know some people who suffer from like
Mm,
constipation and
mm,
they'll even try laxatives.
mm.
I have a friend who, she's a little older woman who chronic, such a problem. She went to the doctor, she got colonoscopy, she tried castor oil, nothing was working. And I'm not being paid for this, by the way. She came to LifeCo. She was coming for 5 days, ended up staying for 10 days. Everything cleared out, did a complete detox. That was last summer. She's totally fine. Like now we're in March. It's been 8 months, no issues. She needed that hard reset.
Yeah, it is a
That,
reset, isn't it? Yeah.
that big detox, getting everything out with, because they have the colon cleanses here in addition
Mm,
to the detox. So you can really,
mm,
whether it's coffee enemas or the colon cleanse, really get everything out that's just been
mm.
stuck, that glue. And that's all she needed. She just needed a hard reset. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, yeah, that's very, very, very good for her. Yeah.
That's
Mm,
another thing I love about detox is it puts me back on track. I always do it twice a year, three if I'm lucky,
mm,
but it puts me back on track of those healthy habits.
mm.
Yeah. And we know when we're healthy, we feel better up here too. It's so important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you were going to say, I don't know, three takeaways for somebody going through this. Maybe they're perimenopause, they're in menopause, wherever you are in the hormonal spectrum. What would three things be that you could say?
Three things. Well, yeah, I think keep eliminating, you know, the detox side, both what you put in and what you eliminate. So yeah, find a way to, you know, improve that in your life, that side of things. Reduce stress, because stress has such a damaging effect on the whole system. You know, we now know it's all the things that we know, you know, the meditation, the exercise, the diet, the B vitamins, 7 hours sleep. I mean, lots of people say 7 hours, that sounds such a lot, but actually 7 hours sleep is now considered to be the minimum of what's needed to stay healthy, for the body to repair itself and stay healthy. And really, that is the thing about the menopause as any other time. You know, the generally healthier you are, the more likely you are to sail through the menopause, you know, without big problems. And yeah, just building good habits, I think.
Yeah, that's nice. I took some notes while you were talking, and that aligns with what I put. For me, I put the nutrition, that's because it's so important. Um, the vitamins that you discussed, eating plenty of fiber, exercise, which
Mm.
goes, and I put that in with meditation.
Yeah.
Because for me,
Mhm.
I walk, I can walk 2 hours. It's like I get into this meditative trance,
Mm.
but
Mm.
I do meditate as well. Meditation changed my life.
Mm.
I was not a meditator until I went through chemo, and I needed something to help block pain. And I really got into meditation. Boy, did that changed my life. So
Wow.
I
That's a very
totally,
powerful, yeah.
and I'll tell you out there, if you're listening and you're not a big meditator, if you've tried it and didn't work, don't give up, try again. There's so many ways. There's guided meditation. Exercise can be a meditation. You can do it for 2 minutes, you can do it for 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be the transcendental, quiet your mind and chant Om. That's beautiful, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be something that quiets you, where you
Mm.
can sit peacefully and let your mind disconnect. I think guided meditations are really good for people who can't quiet their mind, because at least you're focusing on something else.
Yeah, it gives your brain something to do.
Uh, and then I think I would add self-care, right?
Mm.
This is a time to like up your self-care and your self-love and be like, I have an amazing body that's functioning. It's gotten me here so far. Like it's got me to where I am, and just loving your body, everything about it, even the things you don't like, because it's part of you. I think we really need a lot more of that instead of looking at what's not right, looking at what's not working, like really kind of focusing on what is. And I don't know, giving ourselves permission to maybe be a little more selfish in taking care of ourselves.
Yes, and I think part of that self-care can be, seeing a practitioner when the time's right. There is so much knowledge out there, and there are so many wonderful practitioners, again, whether it's a herbalist or an acupuncturist or a homeopath, because that is part of that self-care process, isn't it? And they can just really help support you through a challenging time. Yeah.
Look at going to a meditation class or a yoga class or coming to a detox center, not as a luxury, but as a necessity.
Mhm.
Like make it a priority, just like you brush your teeth, you go to the dentist, you need to take your class, go to a detox. Like I think we really have to focus on making it more of a priority and not feel
Mm,
like luxury.
mm, mm. Definitely.
Well, this has been great. I know our hour is up already. I cannot believe it. Um, Thank you so much, Susan. This has been wonderful. And I would say out there, this is not mine. Somebody else said this to me, and I loved it, that menopause is inevitable, but suffering is not. So we're all going to go through it, but there's so many ways to thrive going through menopause and look at it maybe as um, a reward. No more periods. No more, like you really do get past the crazy mood swings. You do. I'm 12 years out. They're gone. There's no hot flashes. There's no mood swings. I feel good. I feel like I was 23. I feel up here as happy as I was when I was 23. A lot
Mm.
younger now than I felt at 38. I'll tell you that right now. And I'm in my 50s. So, all right. Well, that was enough for me. Susan, do you have any last words?
No, I think we've managed to cover a lot. Yeah, just keep well, everybody. Nice to see some new names and some familiar names.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on this wellness webinar, again, as part of the LifeCo Wellness Series to celebrate their 20th anniversary. And if you want to know more about the LifeCo, how you can come here, you can check the website. Great retreats happening all the time. And also information on Susan Curtis, if you want to know how to contact her or any of the information that she has as well. Thank you. And until next time, have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.